The perfect economy. The history of man teaches us that prosperity is not only difficult to achieve, but also it is easy to lose. A cursory look at the rise and fall of empires ought to teach us the truth of that proposition. The rise and fall of Rome, Greece, Spain, Mongolia, and the various caliphates are cases in point. We have the failed attempts of Hitler, the Germanic tribes, Napoleon, and many others as demonstrations that military conquests are easier to achieve than to sustain. However, we are not likely to be looking for a common denominator between Emperor Hirohito's fascist ambitions and the struggle of the U.S. to acquire an empire in the modern age. On the face of it, prosperity does not seem that complicated a thing. It only takes us to make things. The more stuff we make, the more prosperous we become. However, we know that as true as that is, the production of wealth does not take place in a vacuum. Take a simple example. If a person makes cookies and eats them, no matter how fast he makes cookies, if they are eaten as they are made, wealth is not accumulated. In fact, as he has to purchase ingredients, the process will make him poorer. Wealth is not the simple possession of something, however. Even if one had a ton of diamonds, one would not be wealthy if one was not able to exchange these diamonds for other things. Stealing $1 million from a bank that has recorded the serial numbers of the bills does not make you wealthy, because if you spend any of it you will be caught and go to jail. On the other hand, if the state just prints money, it will not make the nation richer. It will not even make the state rich. Money is not a measure of wealth, though people like to think so. The possession of money gives one the impression of wealth, and many fall for the illusion. It is like owning $1 billion worth of a company that depends on you for its existence. Let's say you are a singer, and you incorporate yourself. On paper you might be worth $1 billion, but if you try and sell these shares, their paper value would drop precipitously. You are only valuable so long as you own yourself. Individually we do not represent much wealth. Our lives are short and our skills few. The individual left to his own devices can barely do enough to stay alive. An economy in which each person provides for himself and his family is called a subsistent economy, for that reason. But, and here is where it gets interesting, every now and then an individual with an amazing talent emerges. The difference between a failed economy and a successful one hinges on how effective the system is in identifying and utilizing these unique individuals. A nuclear engineer has no value in a Neolithic community. The community that is illiterate cannot understand the value of a mathematician. The spiritually immature is all about consumption. The spiritually immature person is egocentric. This spiritual immaturity is what the story of Eden is about. The knowledge of good and evil is not knowledge, per se, but the narcissistic interpretation of events as being significant only as they impact the individual. This story is about the development of spiritual immaturity. That we do not understand this or what to do about the social problems we face is also a sign of our spiritual immaturity as a nation. A sign of spiritual immaturity is not understanding what is going on or what to do about it. The spiritually mature are aware there are two realities and two worlds. The spiritually young cannot accept this or understand what it means. They, the spiritually immature, assume everything that is going wrong is solvable only within the context of their reality. But those who live in this reality cannot solve the problems of their reality. There is a reason for the spiritual blindness of the spiritually immature. The spiritual immature think reality is a substance. It is not, it is spiritual. Another term that can be used to describe reality is that it is composed of information. The spiritually mature are articulate in ways the spiritually immature are not. Spiritual infants think race is tied up with a person's genetic material and physical characteristics. It is not. Race is a spiritual designation. This is where it gets really real, because there are only two possible spiritual states. One is either spiritually immature or spiritually mature. One is spiritually a babe or an adult. There are no other possibilities, and the reality of one is not the reality of the other. There is then two biblical interpretations and they lead to two distinct realities. In one reality God is a baby and loving. God is both loving and a babe to be loved. All is forgiven and all we need to do is love and we are saved. This is the infantile reality and spiritual salvation. In this worldview, salvation is all about feelings. Faith and love is something we feel. This ties in with the claim those who are spiritually immature are in a kind of preliterate phase. They operate at the level of feelings. However, there is another race and another reality, and this other reality is about words and information. It's not about feelings. In this reality, God is implacable and the church is an adult in the spiritual senses. The spiritually mature knows the problem is not in the world, but in them, in their lack of knowledge. The spiritual babe is not a person of Christ who is faithful to God, but not quite educated enough. The spiritual immature is blind to the truth because they are possessed by demons. Demonic possession is what keeps people dumb and blind to the truth. The spiritual immature are not immature because they have not had time to grow or had exposure to the truth. We all have precisely the same exposure, we all have the same time. The same information is available to all of us. The difference is that the spiritually immature excuse their demons and detest the idea of having to grow up. The spiritually immature deny demonic possession. They deny there is a race of spiritually mature persons. They look everywhere for the source of their problems, other than at their own spiritual condition. The spiritual child will never look at his or her own possession. The spiritually immature is so focused on how they feel, they do not engage as a study of their ideas or why they think as they do. But if you or anyone else has a problem, or if you think something cannot be solved, you are spiritually immature. Things cannot be solved by emotions. It is not possible to make you feel good about everything. The spiritually immature cannot open their eyes to the truth. It is the demons in you that keep you blind. It is demons that blind you from information and prioritize your feelings. The answers to the world's problems exist, they have always existed. Follow idols and demons that make you a victim and a subject of the state. There is a solution to this, but it requires you to educate yourself. The fact that you are under a state and consider it a paternalistic solution to the things that bother you, tells you everything you need to know about your condition. The perfect economy has no inflation or debt. It has no unemployment and needs no charity. But this cannot happen in this system, which is governed by the spiritually immature. Unfortunately, the spiritually immature cannot understand why this is so. This might be because they think maturity and immaturity are on a continuum. This is not so. It is true age is a continuum, but there is a line between someone who is an adult and the same person as a child. A threshold is crossed as significant as that between the married and unmarried. It is not the marriage ceremony that is the significant event, it is the mental transformation that ceases to think we are an individual and starts thinking in terms of a unit. The two become one. This same kind of transformation happens when we enter spiritual maturity. We stop thinking as a child. 1 Corinthians 13:10-13:10 But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face, now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Read these words clearly. They speak of a process. For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face, now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. It is by knowing as we are known that we come to know. This is a process. The tool or technique that enables us to begin the process might be thought to be the church. Church is not built of immature Christians. This is a mistake we have made. The church is the body of Christ. It is mature Christians. We need a methodology to begin the embarkation to the other world. If this present world is evil and spiritually immature, we need a way to transfer into the new reality, the reality in which we live as spiritually mature beings. The vehicle on which we make this ride is politics. The church needs to be a political party or field a political voice. Politics ought to serve an evangelical function. If the laws of the flesh can corrupt the soul and lead people away from God, the laws of the Spirit ought to be able to lead people to the saving grace of Christ. In this respect, the main policy of a spiritually mature party would promote the ending of all graft and corruption. In simple terms, the main policy initiative of the spiritually mature party would systematically eliminate all freeloading. That is all that the perfect economy is or needs. Freeloading can be as simple as not paying housewives and volunteers, or as deep-seated as the graft and corruption of social agenda agencies. It all has to be eliminated, and a spiritually mature politics would eliminate all of it.